another video, and today I'm sort of elaborating on metabolism and how to increase your metabolic rate, as I briefly touched on it in our last video about belly fat, and there's always a lot of questions about this, so I wanted to sort of go into it a bit more because there's a lot more to it than people think. So firstly, metabolism, what exactly is it? So it's the process by which your body converts what you eat or drink into energy. So even when you're at rest, your body's still using energy for basic functions such as breathing, circulating blood, and repairing all the damage from what you've done during the day. So basically the energy your body uses for these functions is what is called your basal metabolic rate. So the faster your metabolic rate, the easier it is to burn through the foods that you eat for energy, and therefore makes it a lot easier to maintain a trim physique, because you're basically just like a really inefficient car, I suppose you could say, that's chewing up all the fuel. So but the thing that people forget about metabolism, it's more than just losing weight. So there's a lot of important functions that it plays just to keep you alive. So it's one of the many systems that we have. So people who are aware of the skeletal system, the muscular system, so there'd be bones and there'd be muscles. So you've got circulatory systems, so that's your blood circulation. You've got immune system, you've got a reproductive system, you've got endocrine system. The digestive system is a huge factor in ruining a lot of these. Breathing, so without breathing you wouldn't you would be dead. Nervous system, so your brain connecting all these, so the electrical system to basically make you function. So the thing with all these systems is they're all bound by each other. So if one goes off, they're all off. So and many of these systems are what we call the autonomic nervous system. So basically these systems are running without us having to consciously think about doing so. So we don't have to do anything, and they run 24/7. So for example, your breathing, like, you don't have to think about breathing, it just happens. And same with blood flow, digestive system, all of these things. Metabolism plays a huge part in making sure that they function, so that there's energy for them to function. If they stop working, then you're in a lot of trouble. All right, so and again, you don't have to consciously think about it. So metabolism is a very important factor in making sure that all these things stay in check. All right, so it's more than just what it does for your weight. All right, so where our metabolism can be disrupted is by imbalances to several or one or even several of these systems. So what we initially see is weight gain, but underneath there may be several problems that are contributing to the problem of weight gain. So and unfortunately there's not a simple fix, because it could be, like, as you could imagine, there's so many of those systems that could be different from one person to the next. So but extreme dieting or excessive exercise can exacerbate these problems, or lack of exercise as well. So and create a lot of problems with the metabolism, which you've got to remember is, like, weight gain is what you see, but you could have functions going, really big problems in the digestive system, the circulatory system, your respiratory system, and all of these things are going to be creating like a slower metabolism, and not having enough energy to run those systems effectively. So then your body's basically going to be storing excessive energy somewhere to make up for the fact that it's not being used well, and that's where it usually goes to your gut. So stress and hormonal imbalances, especially, which stress creates a cortisol hormone, so that hormone starts to suppress other ones, and then everything starts to go off the rail, and they can really make a huge difference to the way your body is using energy effectively. It sort of moves into a process of storing it instead of using it, because it's going to feel like it's in a crisis if it used it all up, which means you don't work out as much, or you have less energy, which then further exacerbates things. So and here's a good example of all these different hormones going all crazy and creating excessive weight gain. So genetics, people love to blame genetics, and we tend to say, like, oh, I'm overweight because I've got a slow metabolism, or like in my case, I was the other way when I was younger. Like I couldn't put weight on. My metabolism, I used to say, was working so quickly. But while there's some part of it is genetics, there's a lot of things you can do to change that and get control of it. All right. So and a lot of it has come down to changing bad habits and lifestyle factors that are contributing to the slow or fast metabolism. So the most important thing you can do is to lift weights, right? To add muscle, because muscle is the most important factor in terms of a metabolic rate. It's so inefficient to look after that it requires quite a constant or quite a fast metabolism in order to repair all the damage that is created from a strength workout if it's done correctly. Now, this doesn't mean you can go crazy and overdo it, because if you overdo it, then you go too far the other side and you become it becomes a huge problem. But this chart here gives you an example of just how much muscle has an effect on metabolism over a 24-hour period. So it's 2/3 of it is just determined by how much muscle you have. So the more you have, the faster your metabolism. If you're exercising, it's irrelevant what type of exercise, just moving will use a certain chunk. Eating on its own, so just the process of eating and digesting the food, that requires some. So again, if you're not eating regularly, you're slowing your metabolism down, and things like body temperature, so like shivering when you're cold or sweating when you're hot, again requires energy that's outside the norm. All right, so outside of the autonomic nervous system, these are the factors that can really drive it slower or faster. So less muscle, slower metabolism. So how much you weigh depends very much on the choices you make about food and how much you're moving throughout the day. But just remember, as you're aging, you tend to start eating fewer calories, and then because your body just doesn't need the energy as much, and you basically start to not move as much, but more importantly, your muscle starts to decrease. So if you're not quickly paying attention to it, it can accelerate into a loss, and that's when you can really stack the weight on around the stomach, because you're still eating like you were, but your muscle is significantly less than what it was before. So therefore it makes perfect sense to find ways to just add muscle mass, because it really plays a huge factor. So so a lot of people don't realize, like when you're working out and you do a strength workout, when you finish the workout, you're actually still, your body's still burning like through the energy quite a lot, as opposed to say going for a run or a walk. The recovery time is significantly less. Everyone's aware of, if they've done strength workout, the DOMS feeling. So that DOMS, when you're asleep overnight, your body's metabolic rate is going through the roof, where from a run it's not, because it doesn't, or especially a walk, there's just not really that much damage to recover from. So the thing here, muscle uses about 3 times as many calories as fat per day just to sustain itself. So that small difference can add up over time if you're constantly really consistent with your workouts and you're eating good food around that, obviously. So the thing with the workouts, if you're sitting on machines or you're doing bicep curls, you're not really doing all that much. If you're doing functional workouts where you're really activating every muscle, you're really doing a hell of a lot. So you're obviously activating more muscles, but the energy expenditure for those particular movements is significantly greater. The damage is significantly greater, and therefore your metabolic rate is going to go crazy overnight to repair it all. A big factor with muscles, which I've spoken many times about, is its influence over regulating hormones, so which we quickly looked at before. So it's not just about energy and calories and all that, and energy expenditure. So it has a really big benefit in suppressing the damaging hormones like cortisol and the adrenaline and things like that really go crazy. Especially insulin plays a big role in managing insulin and blood sugars. So type 2 diabetes, if you can reverse it by really working out and eating good food, you'll control the insulin instead of it getting out of control. Now, before you go hit the gym and start crushing your workouts, you've got to make sure you have a good plan and you're able to move well before you can just start loading things up. So If you just think, oh, if all I have to do is just get it done more often and I'll automatically start moving better, that's not a good plan. That'll just wreck your joints, and then you won't be able to move at all. So, I won't go into too much detail about all of that things. There's heaps of videos I've done on that before. There's a free report you can get from the website that goes into how to learn these techniques. Check the description below. I'll put some links in there so you can get some more information on that. But it's just a quick thing to. The main point is just understand you really want to use functional movements. Now, in terms of cardiovascular exercise, the interval training is really effective as well. And really, it's sort of like weight training, but instead of using weights or load, the resistance is speed. So you can't sustain it because it's so fast. So then you have to have a rest, and then you do it again, which is very much the same as doing sets of weights. It's just using a different type of equipment to do so. So, and obviously, it really works the cardiovascular system a lot more so than the weight training will. So, and what they've found is that you can really burn more fat than exercising continuously for an hour. So, there's a sort of a unique metabolic response where there's chemical compounds allowing more fat to be burned from under your skin and within your muscles. So there's many ways you can do it. Like, you don't necessarily have to run. Like, I could easily do it on a spin bike. I could swim, or I could box even. Just anything that's short and sharp, like, minute fast, minute rest, something like that. It could even be less, 30 seconds fast, really, really explosively fast. But it's just more effective than going for a long, slow walk or a long, slow run. Other things to keep in mind, so apart from the exercise, is getting sleep. If you don't get enough sleep, you won't be able to repair the damage, and your digestive system won't be working as well, because that's when it really works at the most, is at night, to repair all the damage that you've created during the day. So if your sleep is compromised, your body's compromised with healing itself, and the metabolic rate is going to be all disrupted again. So all of your good efforts during the day are going to be completely ruined. All right, so you really want to get to bed on time and get good sleep. Some people are really trying to get a good sleep, but it's not easy. So here's some simple tips here. Stop drinking caffeine after 12 o'clock. Try to keep your bed area cold and dark. Have a little routine at night. Magnesium supplement might help you. Meditation or using things to help calm yourself down before you sleep is a good idea. But again, there's a lot more things about sleep that I could go into, but just understand it can have a big effect on your waistline. So it's more than just food that can influence this. All right. So now food, it's one thing we haven't spoken a lot about, and I've touched on it briefly. But you really want to eat at regular times. If you're eating all over the place, skipping meals a lot, and then you're craving, you're eating junk, obviously portions are going to be out of whack, blood sugar is going to be out of whack, but you're basically like disrupting the metabolism a lot. So it's going to be, if you're skipping meals or and really deliberately trying to eat less for long periods, like intermittent fasting can be good for some people for a period of time, but over a long period it can really slow things down because body's just going to adapt to that. All right, so try to find ways of eating regularly. You don't necessarily have to eat a lot, and you should just eat small portions anyway. It's a hard one, this one, because it's not a hard and fast rule, I'd say, for everyone. Some people do need to eat a little bit less often, but if your metabolism's fairly slow and you're struggling and you don't eat very often, I would say try to have some small snacks a bit more regularly, and that might help you get going a bit more. Eating slowly. So if you eat too fast, that can really disrupt everything. So one of the things about eating is it takes about 20 minutes from the start of a meal for the brain to send out the signals that it's full. So some people eat way too fast than that, and they're all over in 3 minutes. So they basically have overeaten, and they didn't know they've overeaten because they ate too fast. They had to slow down. They wouldn't have eaten as much, and then you can really get control of your portions. So, So that's another thing: in eating more regularly, eating slowly. Now, eating too little when you're really limiting your calories, that can be a real problem. Like at first you're going to see some changes with the weight loss, but it's probably going to be more muscle you've lost. While it's not good to overeat, you can really go too far the other way, and it's been proven that when you do lose weight initially, your metabolism slows, especially if you're not doing weight training. That's why the weight training really comes into it, interval training as well, because that's sort of helping you to keep that inefficiency going while you're trying to get control of your food. All right, so this sort of adaptation is what they call metabolic adaptation. It's a natural self-defense mechanism against starvation. So while it's good to limit your calories, you need to be not trying to rush it and do it too quickly, because you're going to create problems like you see here. Just try to do it slowly and eat more regularly, eat more slowly, and then it shouldn't be a huge shock to the system. All right, so when you're dieting at a certain point, body sends out the signals, the starvation alert, there's not enough food to go around, and basically just holds onto the fat reserves. And at that point, your resting metabolic rate will slow down. So it can really make things very frustrating, because it does look like you're eating quite well, but nothing's happening. And whenever that happens, I'm looking at how maybe you're not eating regularly enough, maybe you're not doing your weights or your interval training, maybe you're doing them too often, maybe you're not sleeping enough. They're all the things I'd be sort of suspicious of, and trying to work out, okay, what's a better strategy for that? You know, and if you're eating too little, it's weird how you can put weight on from eating too little. And basically, like I said, that's that the body's just adapted to that and stores all the food as for later on. So again, I won't go too much into specifics because it's impossible for each person, but here's a slide here that gives you some ideas of some things that you can do that could help you with getting your food right. Again, check the description. I'll put some links there for you with extra information to help you, but this should give you some ideas of what you could do. Proteins are another big factor that obviously helps with the repair of muscles, how it helps you keep you full for longer, you know, and just by eating more protein you burn more calories because the increased thermic effect of the food itself, so it's a hard thing for it to digest. So it's a lot of great benefits, and I think most people would obviously know about that already. So, but yeah, that's one thing. If you're eating not enough of protein, or like poor sources of protein, you're probably not getting the best out of your diet, and therefore disrupting your metabolism. Drinking enough water. So you need enough water to process the calories. Even if you're just a little bit dehydrated, your metabolism will slow down. So you know, there's been lots of studies on this. So there's one here that drank adults who drank 8 or more glasses of water burned more calories than those who drank only 4. So when you become dehydrated, your liver will secrete a hormone that increases your blood sugar, and as you begin to rehydrate your blood, sugars will naturally lower. So again, you can see how hormones become a big problem again. You know, if one goes up, one goes down. It's kind of how it works. Obviously moving more, so if, lifting weights and doing your interval training is great, but if you just sit on your ass for the rest of the day, that's not really a good idea, because that's what we call active but sedentary, because like it's great to work out, but you need your body constantly moving to keep the metabolism going. So it doesn't mean you have to be working out all the time. Just try to you know, park in the car park furthest from work or from the shop, so you have to walk there, go for a walk at night or in the morning, go for one at lunchtime. Try and just keep moving. Don't just sit on the couch or all day long and just think your 30-minute workout or your 60-minute workout was all you needed to do. All right, so you can get more from probably moving, like doing a 10-minute workout 3 times in the same day than maybe one 30-minute workout, for example. All right, so just thinking of different ways to try and keep the body energy expenditure continually moving. So this is where I've sort of put here some small amounts of regularly standing, moving around is enough to sort of regulate all this, what I put here with the enzymes. So that sitting too long slows down the metabolism, the way the enzyme lipoprotein lipase breaks down. All right, so all the small activity all adds up over the day. So you know, if you're doing it more often, you're going to find it easier, and then eventually becomes a habit. So walking is a great thing, really underrated. So we really complement your interval training and your strength training. You know, and if you do all those things, you should be pretty good. All right, so I hope this video gives you some good information, some tips, maybe things that maybe you're not getting right. For extra information, there's some reports you can get that go into specifics of a lot of the stuff I've described here, with specific programs and ideas and recipes for food and things like that. Yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video, and we'll see you next time.